For a couple years, I worked on an inpatient psychiatric facility. Um, I helped care for patients who were suicidal, manic, psychotic, people in the worst moments of their lives. And then something happened that I really fought like hell to avoid, and it cost me some friendships even. A few years later, I ended up on the other side of the locked doors, not as a provider, but as a patient. Experiencing a psychiatric hospital from both sides completely changed how I see mental illness and treatment and recovery, and it's actually one of the reasons why I wrote my novel, Poison Down the Hatch. So in this video, I want to talk about what it's really like to see the psych ward from both sides, as a provider and as a patient. So I initially had some traumatic things happen to me growing up. This painting behind me that I did is actually from somebody who I really loved and cared about and who died by suicide when he was just 18. It was really crappy. And he is also part of the reason why I wrote Poison Down the Hatch. So why I wanted to work in a psychiatric facility was because growing up, my mom had a lot of mental health issues, and that created a lot of empathy in me, and I wanted to help out, I always had an interest in psychology and stuff like that. So initially, when I first went to college, I studied psychology before I switched over to nursing. And I focused on nursing school while working inpatient. It just made sense and made things easier. But I genuinely wanted to help people through the worst moments of their lives because growing up, I had seen it firsthand. And I had dealt with it firsthand. Yeah, I mean, it was crazy as a teenager. I first started dealing with depression. So I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. And took Celexa for years. Then, a little later on, when I got to college, I was finally diagnosed with bipolar disorder, type 1. And it was very severe, but I didn't want to be hospitalized, so I played the system and didn't do myself any favors because, like I said, I cost myself friendships. So that kind of sucked. But, what working in a psych hospital was actually like, there's a daily routine, people get their medications in the morning, and then there's attending rounds with the psychiatrist in the morning. Then there's groups throughout the day. I wish I could say they were helpful. They're not always the most helpful, but it's, like from being a staff member, I'd like to think they were helpful. But as a patient, yeah, no. The emotional intensity of the job was very difficult because you're a staff member, so you're an enemy of the patients, usually. I mean, there were times when I had very specific patients who chronically masturbated and always had their hands grossly down their pants while they roamed the halls. And then there was this one woman I worked with, Cheryl. She was older and she had a very commanding presence. So, like, when she told people, don't do that, they tended to listen. When I told them, that was another story. They'd ignore me, give me dirty looks, or like make it more provocative what they were doing. So, you know, you get people like that. It's a time. Yeah, it's a time. The emotional impact of the job, like witnessing trauma and stuff like that, that was difficult. Hearing people talk about their traumatic experiences was difficult because you had to, make it out to be like it didn't affect you because you had to be the strong one. You had to be the supportive one. So there were times when you just hear the most heartbreaking stories of sexual trauma, and it gets dark there. It really does. And because of that, then there's compassion fatigue. Like, there were times when I'll admit it, I did not have the patience to deal with being spit on, attacked physically. And, you have to remain professional. And I did, but it was very difficult sometimes. Because getting spit on is not ideal. I really did not appreciate it. But who does? So the turning point in my own life, struggling with bipolar type 1, it was heartbreaking because I lost like one of my best friends because she was only looking out for me by trying to get me inpatient care. And I was like, not having it. Because I was like, I'm going to fail out of nursing school. I'm going to lose my job here at the psych ward. It just... So we fought and we fought and we fought and we fought. And eventually she said, I just can't be friends with you. You won't even help yourself. And it's very painful. But I know she still cares because I'm in the middle of a divorce right now. And she messaged me. And it was really nice. But our relationship will likely never be the same. She still... I caused so much trauma to her life that, she has every right to not want to talk to me. And it meant a lot to me that she even reached out to say how sorry she was that my now ex, did all the things that he did, which is a story for another time. But yeah, eventually I got threatened with a commitment, which in the state of Pennsylvania it's called a 302. And I didn't want a 302 on my record because at the time I was so suicidal. I just was like, man, if I get this 302 on my record, I'm not going to be able to buy a gun to die by. So, anyways, that's a little dark. But yeah, I voluntarily signed myself in, and it was just really difficult because I wound up withdrawing from being a staff member. Yeah, it was just really difficult. It felt like failing, you know, entering the hospital that way. It felt humiliating. It sucked. We'll just say that it sucked. But I will say it felt much different emotionally, and I wound up getting the help that I needed. It was painful, to be honest, but eventually I was honest and I was hospitalized a couple of times since ending my job at the psych hospital. So, really, it made me have more empathy for psych patients. It made me have empathy for the staff. Mental health is like very complex to treat, and it really takes a village. Let's just say that. Like, you gotta have good inpatient providers. You gotta be honest with them, as much as it sucks. As much as it means potentially staying longer or doing different things. So, really, the humanity in inpatient care is super important. And I feel like if I were to go back to working, which I can, I'm disabled, I would have probably less irritation for the people angry enough to spit on you or masturbate in front of you or eat all the Vaseline and then have diarrhea everywhere all over the unit. Like, it would just change things. So, experiencing psychiatric hospitals from both sides deeply shaped the way I write about them in my novel Poison Down the Hatch. Like, when I created Poison Down the Hatch, I wanted it to be clinically accurate. So, I really worked hard on making it something that clinicians would want to read too, not just patients, not just, whoever. I really wanted clinicians, providers, psychiatrists, to want to read it. So I worked really hard at keeping things how they generally are. And in fact, my one psych clinician, I told her about it, and she was just like, I really would like to read that. So I was like, hell yeah. I worked really hard on it, so awesome. Really, what I would like to do and why I decided to wear psych ward attire, as I just got out of a psych appointment today, is I want to reduce stigma. I want to tell honest mental health stories. Sharing art like this, that one is really dark. I was in a really sad, dark place when I did that. But this one's a little bit more fun. So, yeah, I really create art to hopefully inspire people to work towards recovery. That's really what I'm after. I mean, what I wound up doing this morning was electroconvulsive therapy because my bipolar depression is type 1. Outside of that, in my clinical notes, it says that I'm in a very severe episode of depression, which is fair. I like to make jokes and have some fun, but yeah, it's tough. Well, thanks for tuning in. If you would like to know more, I'm happy to share more stories and general information. If you have questions, I'll do my best to answer it. And please subscribe. Thanks.